Hello and welcome to Devil's Advocate. Is the Nano a miracle of modern manufacturing which makes cheap cars available to millions, or is it in the Indian situation a potential nightmare that could create unacceptable pollution and urban congestion? That's the key issue I shall discuss today with the Director for the Centre of Science and Environment and a lady that many consider the conscience keeper of India, Sunita Narayan. Sunita Narayan, when Ratan Tata launched the Nano, he made a tongue-in-cheek comment that it wouldn't give you sleepless nights. Was he right or was he wrong?
Well, the unfortunate thing is that too much gives me sleepless nights, because the fact is that it's not just the Nano, but it's all the cars coming onto the roads, which should give all of us sleepless nights, not just me.
In which case, let me put it like this. Do you see the Nano and the potential increase in cars that it could herald as a miracle of manufacturing that brings cheap cars to millions? Or do you see it as a potential nightmare in the Indian situation because it could lead to uncontrolled pollution and urban congestion unless it's very carefully managed?
Karan, this is always the Indian answer, both. Very clearly both. I mean, it is phenomenal to have a car like Nano on the roads, and I do believe that it is a technological miracle. He's broken all barriers of cost and affordability. Remarkable. But in the Indian circumstance, it's not just about the Nano, but all the cars which are going to ape the Nano and the numbers of cars on our roads. And the question that we have to ask is, cars cost us the earth. Can we afford it? And that's the question that I don't think Indians are asking enough.
All right, let's break that up into two parts. Let's begin by looking at the potential problem an increase in cars could create. And then later in part two, look at the corrective measures necessary. And let's start with pollution. The October 8th issue of your magazine Down to Earth says, on a per passenger basis, a car emits 2 times more particulate matter that poses a serious health challenge compared to a two-wheeler and 4 times more compared to a bus. So is your starting position that any sharp increase in cars and vehicles on the roads is something you would not like to see?
I think it's important, Karan, if I can get a few minutes on this and explain this. It's important for us to understand that cars in India have to be seen differently than cars in, say, New York or in Shanghai or even in London, because there are larger numbers of cars there. The question in India is that we are getting cars because we are getting richer, but we are too poor to afford the regulation that we need for cars that they can afford, whether it is cleaner fuel, cleaner technology, checking the backside of every car so that your pollution is under control, making sure that you pay for parking, essentially making sure that you are rich enough not just to use the car, but also to manage the fallouts of using that car. And that's really the big issue for countries like India. And the challenge for us to think, is the car the only way that we can have mobility?
Given that concern, what would be the outcome if many of the people today in India who use two-wheelers were to upgrade themselves and buy the Nano instead? What impact would it have on pollution?
Well, essentially 2 things. One, we must understand, particularly if we talk about the two-wheeler and car equation, the fact is the two-wheeler takes much less space on the road. So with the increase of cars, you essentially get more congestion. And if you get more congestion, your pollution can go up 5 times. And by the numbers of 2 cars on the road, be very clear, you live in Delhi, I live in Delhi. I would like to ask all your viewers across the country, just go out and smell your air. And if you cannot smell the toxins in your air, and if you don't understand that this is not just dirty air, but that this is going to do the worst things possible to your body, that's really, to me, the big issue with the cars.
Now, let me point out to you that the Pollution Control Board already claims that more than 50% of the 90 cities that it monitors have particulate matter levels that are already critical.
Absolutely.
If now you have an exponential increase of the number of cars on the roads and pollution goes up as a result, as you said, 5 times, what will be the impact on those cities?
Horrendous. I mean, I cannot even begin to describe it in any scientific, technical words. Just understand, it's horrendous. And please understand,
Would they become unlivable?
They are practically becoming unlivable today. We just don't feel it because we somehow put aside the cost to health. If our children have asthma, we just think this is the cost of progress. If our old can't breathe, we simply say, oh, hawa kharab hai, ab kya kare, ye to karna hi padega. But we have a choice. We must demand a choice.
Now, the problem is, of course, that no one can actually stop cars increasing. As people become more wealthy, they want to buy cars. It's aspirational. So how do you respond to research done by the Economic Times, which says that in terms of carbon dioxide equivalent emissions, the Nano is 40% better than other cars? In other words, if cars are going to increase anyway, it's better that people should buy the Nano rather than other cars.